A cheerleader and class president goes missing from a tight-knit Southern community.
It seemed like it was a normal day, that everything was going well.
She wouldn't just not come home.
A loving family is rocked by rumors of a sordid affair.
She's responsible, she's a leader, was totally out of character.
They can't believe she got herself involved in a situation like this.
As the hours stretch into days, investigators unearth a star-crossed teenage romance and learn that passion doesn't come without a price.
It's not just jealousy we're dealing with here, it's something far more twisted.
It started to be this type of thing where you need to prove to me that you love me.
They kept their relationship secret, but not secret enough.
You have 3 lives that are ruined because of one person's actions.
January 3rd, 2008, 9:30 p.m. It's a cool winter evening in the quiet town of Union, South Carolina. At the Jeter family home, 16-year-old Marisha kisses her father Manning goodbye before making a quick run to a nearby fast food restaurant.
I'm gonna go get some food.
All right.
Okay.
Marisha had told her father that she was gonna make a quick trip to the McDonald's.
I'll be right back. I love you, Daddy.
I love you too.
But when an hour passes and Marisha still hasn't returned, her father begins to worry.
She was supposed to be going to McDonald's to get something to eat and back home.
Hey, Marisha, this is Daddy calling, just checking up on you. Give us a call back. We love you.
When she had not returned home, her father was concerned, began calling her cell phone, and with no luck, to no avail.
Marisha, this is your father calling again. Your mother not worried sick about you. Give us a call back, please. We love you.
She did not return when he expected her to return, and after making phone calls to try to find out where she was, he was unsuccessful in reaching her.
It was totally out of character for Marisha to have not only not returned home, but to have not returned her parents' calls.
You know what? I'm gonna go look for her, okay?
Okay.
All right.
When he can't reach her, Marisha's father gets in his car and drives around the neighborhood looking for her.
Marisha, this is Daddy calling again. Where are you?
He goes to the McDonald's, he calls friends and family, but no one has seen or heard from Marisha.
If I don't hear from you, I'm gonna have to contact the police. Please call me back.
Around 1 o'clock, when there was no response, that's when the father called the authorities.
Yes, I'd like to report my daughter missing, please.
Marisha Jeter was born in Spartanburg, South Carolina on April 29, 1991, the youngest of 4 children and the only girl.
Marisha was the epitome of the daughter anyone would want.
She was the youngest child, the angel in this close, loving family.
Marisha was the apple of his eye. That was his baby girl. Everyone knew it. He would go to the ends of the earth for Marisha.
When she was a young child, Marisha and her family relocated to nearby Union, South Carolina. Marisha wasted no time making friends.
She just had this infectious charm. People really liked her. She loved performing in front of people. She was in several beauty pageants and even won a few.
She was a wonderful singer. One of her older brothers said that her voice could bring tears to your eyes.
During her freshman year in high school, Marisha's good looks and love of performance earned her a spot on the varsity cheerleading squad.
G to the up, go.
Marisha, after school, she would definitely go to cheerleading practice. She loved hanging out with friends, just very outgoing and bubbly girl.
She was just the quintessential young lady.
Naturally, Marisha received more than her fair share of attention from the boys in her class.
The boys definitely had their eyes out for Marisha. She was a catch, no doubt.
Marisha was a beautiful girl, just beautiful brown skin.
Hey.
But Marisha never let boys sidetrack her from her schoolwork.
You want to get something to eat?
I can't. I have to study.
Come on, you want to get something to eat?
I really have to study tonight, guys. Sorry.
She was an excellent student.
Marisha was very involved in her school and her church community. She was the junior class president. She was also very close to her family, so spending time with them was very important to her.
No peeking chocolate, delicious.
No peeking.
When Marisha turned 16, her father gave her a gift to reward her for all of her accomplishments.
She loved pink. Her favorite color was pink.
Her father owned a body shop, So when she received her first car and started driving, he painted her car pink for her.
Marisha would drive that car all over town. She was so proud of it, and her father was proud of her and her limitless future.
But on a chilly January night in 2008, Marisha and her dream car seemed to have vanished into thin air.
It's past midnight, and Marisha's family, especially her father, Manning, is at a loss.
Everyone was really concerned and really lifting up prayers that she was going to be found safely and would come home to her parents safely.
Her friends and family are prepared to move mountains to find Marisha.
What they don't realize is that their search is just beginning, and what they ultimately discover changes everything they think they know about their daughter.
As the investigation went on, it was like more and more secrets came to the surface. No!
On January 3rd, 2008, 16-year-old Marisha Jeter vanishes after making what was supposed to be a brief run to a local fast food restaurant. After scouring the streets of their quiet hometown, Union, South Carolina, Marisha's father, Manning Jeter, has begun to fear the worst.
Her father is very concerned, and he calls police to notify them that she's missing.
Just before dawn, Detective Charles Henderson of the Union Police Department is assigned to the case.
Hello, Mr. Jeter. I'm Detective Henderson. Why don't you tell me what's going on?
Mr. Jeter's highly upset that morning because his daughter's missing.
Well, her father is clueless about what has happened. He doesn't know the possibilities of what could happen.
She went out to get food last night around 9:30. We haven't heard from her. I've been searching the neighborhood, can't find her. I don't know what to do.
Well, what kind of car is she driving?
After speaking with Marisha's father, Detective Henderson issues a county-wide Amber Alert, emphasizing Marisha's bright pink vehicle.
They figure if anything will help them find her, it will be her car.
I'm unsure if anybody who is looking for her would not be able to find her because her vehicle would have been really easy to locate.
With every patrolman in Union on the lookout for Marisha and her bright pink car, word of her disappearance sends ripples of fear throughout this tight-knit town.
Union being very close-knit, being very family and community-oriented, everyone was surprised. Like, where is Marisha? This is not normal. This is not okay.
Most of the people who have lived there have known one another all of their lives. I would not characterize it as there having been a lot of crime there. I would say it would be highly unusual.
But to investigators, the chances that Marisha was kidnapped seem slim. Rather, they wonder if she might have run away.
You're always open to those possibilities. And that's the thing in investigating cases, you don't want to get tunnel vision and just focus in on one thing. You ask yourself where and why. What we were looking for is a reason why a popular kid like Marisha would not want to be found.
Marisha's family is adamant she would never run away.
She's happy. Why would she go missing? Why would she say that she's going to McDonald's and never return home? That doesn't make sense.
But as word of Marisha's disappearance spreads, another possible explanation begins to surface, one that is at odds with her wholesome all-American image.
We was getting information that maybe Marisha may have been pregnant or something like that. Maybe she wanted to get away.
Police were thinking maybe she had done something she was ashamed of.
That would be very unusual for her to go missing in a small town like Union, unless it was something like the pregnancy or something like that she was wanting to hide from her father, from her family.
Again, Marisha's family is adamant that she hasn't run away.
If Marisha was pregnant, which they don't believe she is, she knew that her parents loved and supported her, and knew that she could tell them the truth, and they would do everything within their power to support her. So, the idea of running away over a pregnancy just didn't jive with the family.
If Marisha isn't pregnant, though, who would want to harm her?
This is a beautiful, popular, sweet girl, but those same type of girls can get a lot of hatred and jealousy from their peers. So police had the big question, could someone have hurt her just for being her?
When detectives pose this question to Marisha's family, they have a hard time believing someone from school was behind her disappearance.
Marisha was well-liked, well-loved, well-respected by those who knew her.
However, Marisha's family believes there is one person in town who might want to harm her, but it isn't one of her classmates.
They suspected that there might have been someone linked to this, and that someone was Pernell Thompson.
What do you know about this Parnell fellow?
Pernell went to the local high school. He played football there. He's a pretty good athlete.
He was about 6'3", tall and strong. He had earned a scholarship offer to play college football at Wingate University in North Carolina.
So what you doing later?
I mean, I don't know. I have cheer practice after this.
She was definitely a minor at the time. He's this high school senior getting ready to graduate.
We got wind that they were having a relationship. When we found that out, told her that we didn't approve of that.
There was a conflict between her father and Pernell, and Marisha's father told Pernell to stay away from Marisha.
I think it was the age difference was why it was an issue with Mr. Jeter.
Her father was just very wary of this young man trying to be in a relationship with his daughter.
At that point, we thought that the relationship was dissolved up until a couple of days ago.
This rekindling of the relationship had happened.
Marisha had somehow gotten back involved with Pernell, but this time around, the situation was much more complicated.
Over the summer of 2007, Pernell married a woman named Yolanda Thompson. They then had a baby.
Well, a few days ago, Pernell and his wife came to our front door. Pernell Thompson?
Yes, sir.
What you doing here, man?
My husband has something he wants to tell you.
What you want to tell me, man?
Tell him.
Mr. Jeter, been seeing your daughter.
You been doing what?
They maintained contact for a period of time. Even after Pernell was married, it seemed as if they were maintaining texts and communication.
That's the first time that Marisha's parents knew that their wishes had been ignored and that this relationship with Pernell had continued.
Marisha's this good girl. She's responsible, but she just doesn't want to listen to reason when it comes to Pernell. She's young, she's in love, and even though she knows Pernell is married, she thinks they're going to be together forever.
Marisha's father is adamant his daughter would never run away all by herself, but he does believe she would run off with Pernell if he asked her to.
The way the relationship went, knowing that it was not the proper relationship, I think that Marisha's father was concerned about that and thought that he could possibly know something about where she was.
He thought if there's anywhere to look first, it may be with Pernell.
You know, love has that effect sometimes where people don't make the best choices and they sort of throw caution to the winds and do things they wouldn't otherwise do.
Here you have two star-crossed lovers, desperate to be together. If they did decide to run off together, we all know those stories never turn out well. Romeo and Juliet is always romanticized, but we know how that ended up.
As the search for missing 16-year-old Marisha Jeter ramps up in Union, South Carolina, investigators have already entertained a host of possible explanations.
They theorized that she could have been abducted, that this could have been the work of a rival peer. Marisha's family just wasn't buying it.
Marisha's father, Manning, has his own theory of what happened to her, one that until just a few days ago seemed impossible.
Be careful.
He suggests that she ran off with a young man that she had fallen in love with, an older man named Pernell Thompson.
Is it possible that Marisha got swept up in a Romeo and Juliet style romance, you know, forbidden love and all that, and ran off with married man Pernell Thompson?
He was a football player. She was a cheerleader. It could be possible that, you know, the dream couple ideology may have been part of her reasoning.
Pernell told Marisha's parents, you know, I've been having a relationship with your daughter.
Detectives think, hey, this is a solid lead, and they immediately try to track down Pernell Thompson.
They call Pernell at home, and a family member tells them that he is not there, that he's in North Carolina.
While police continue their search for 20-year-old Pernell Thompson, lead investigator Charles Henderson digs up as much information as he can about the former star athlete.
It turns out there isn't a whole lot of dirt on Pernell Thompson.
I spoke with A good friend of mine that was his high school basketball coach asked a lot of questions about Purnell, and he told me that Purnell is a great student, great athlete. He's an outstanding young man.
Purnell, athlete, good in school, never been in any kind of trouble before, very personable, very pleasant, well-spoken.
Purnell was a standout football player at Jonesville High School who was awarded a scholarship to Wingate in North Carolina, where he played football. He also had received some academic scholarships as well.
And just as any dutiful young man would do, when Purnell hears authorities are looking for him, he promptly calls Detective Henderson.
Detective Henderson.
Hey, Detective. It's Purnell Thompson.
How you doing, sir?
Yeah, I heard you guys were looking for me.
Yes, as a matter of fact, we are.
He eventually agrees to come in and do an interview.
But before Purnell hangs up, Detective Henderson asks him an important question.
You wouldn't happen to be with Marisha Jeter, would you? She's gone missing.
What?
Are you with Marisha Jeter? She's gone missing.
No, I'm with my wife. We're in North Carolina.
Purnell was cooperative with investigators.
He said that he would be there to meet with me, and he would bring Yolanda with him.
I thank you. I'll talk to you later.
So he showed up that night.
Detective Henderson.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you for coming in.
Not a problem.
Investigators want to know about Purnell's relationship with Marisha and Yolanda's feelings about that relationship, so they were separately interviewed.
First up is Purnell.
I really don't want to waste any of your time, so I'm going to get right to the point.
Okay.
We talked to Marisha's family, and they said you guys were involved in some kind of relationship. Was it of sexual nature?
Yes, sir, it was.
And your wife knew about this?
Yes, she knew about it.
He admitted that they had had a relationship, but he denied any involvement in her disappearance.
Purnell is very forthcoming. But during the interview, Detective Henderson notices something curious about Purnell's appearance.
He was wearing wool gloves and a toboggan on his head, which it was kind of cold during the time, but it was still odd.
He had wore gloves to the precinct, and even though it was cold during that month of January, it caused some questions for the investigators to ask.
I understand it's January and it's cold and all, but what's up with the gloves?
I burned myself the other night cooking.
Purnell had burns on his hands, on his face, pretty severe burns.
You burned yourself last night.
Yeah, it was kind of a hideous view. Yeah, I just decided I'd keep it on.
Must be some pretty bad burns.
Purnell states that him and Yolanda needed to go to North Carolina to transfer some things for her work. And then when they came back, they stopped by his grandmother's house.
It kind of stood out to me. But he seemed to be very forthcoming when we sat down and we talked with him.
However, near the end of the interview, Purnell drops a bombshell about Marisha.
So when was the last time you saw her?
It was the other night. She called me up and she wanted to meet up to tell me that she was pregnant.
One that confirms one of Detective Henderson's initial theories and one of Marisha's family's worst fears.
The last time that he talked to her, she said that she didn't know what she was gonna do.
And she led you to believe that you may be the father?
Yeah, definitely.
He talked with Marisha, and then she said that she could have been possibly pregnant, but he states that he didn't have anything to do with her missing.
Purnell said he offered to help Marisha out in any way he could, but the fact remained, he was a married man.
At that time, he had indicated he had officially ended his relationship with Marisha.
Purnell's statement about Marisha's pregnancy opens up a whole can of worms.
Could Marisha have run away to avoid the shame and embarrassment of being pregnant out of wedlock?
Or could Purnell Thompson, or even his wife, had something to do with her disappearance? Purnell seems forthcoming, but he could be hiding something still.
Hello?
In hopes of answering some of these questions, detectives turn to Purnell's 19-year-old wife, Yolanda.
Okay, we've talked to him.
We'd speak with Yolanda after we'd speak with Purnell. And Yolanda was kind of quiet, shy-like. She knew that there was a relationship between Marisha and Purnell, but that was basically it.
So we just want to know how that made you feel.
How it make anybody feel? Hurt? Betrayed?
Yolanda admits that after she learned of Purnell and Marisha's affair, she gave him an ultimatum.
She basically said, you're gonna end this affair. You're gonna tell her parents about it. And they drove down here, he told them about it, and then they drove back home to North Carolina where they vowed to work on their marriage together. A few days later, Marisha disappears.
Did you ever think about hurting Marisha?
No.
Not once?
No.
Yolanda was questioned. She also gives an initial statement admitting knowledge of the parties involved, but not admitting any wrongdoing on her part or involvement with the disappearance.
Yolanda steadfastly denies any involvement with Marisha's disappearance. Like Purnell, she says she was in North Carolina at the time.
Though he's still unsure what happened to Marisha, Detective Henderson has no probable cause to further detain either Purnell or his wife.
Well, that's all we've got for now. We'll get in touch with you again if we have any more questions.
Okay.
After Purnell gives his statement, the authorities have to let him go because they have no evidence to hold him.
At that time, we didn't have anything to say that Yolanda or Purnell had anything to do with her missing.
They probably knew that something was going on, but seeing Purnell come in and his alibi seems as though he is a family man, that he's supportive, that he's really into his family.
The problem is, if Purnell and Yolanda aren't involved in Marisha's disappearance, then who is? And where is Marisha now?
As law enforcement continues their search for the truth, a call comes in, one that has the potential to turn the entire case upside down.
When this young woman peered through the lens of her camera, this was probably the last thing she ever expected to see.
It's now been 24 hours since 16-year-old high school cheerleader Marisha Jeter went missing. Friends, family, and local authorities are no closer to understanding what happened. But the investigation hasn't been without its share of shocking revelations.
We've discovered 16-year-old Marisha was carrying on a romantic relationship with Purnell Thompson. They met in high school, but now Purnell is married and lives in North Carolina. But he's been seeing Marisha, and word is she's pregnant with his child.
Police questioned Purnell and Yolanda, but they both have alibis, so there was nothing connecting them to Marisha's disappearance.
So the search for Marisha is back to square one.
The next afternoon, there's an unexpected break in the case.
Oh my gosh.
Police got a call from a high school student who was at the Broad River near the Lockhart Bridge taking pictures for a project. And the student noticed something that was out of place.
Yeah, I want to report a body. It's just floating. I think she's dead.
When we got the information that the county had a body in the Broad River, we jumped up and we went.
Hey, good evening.
How you doing?
Good.
Good evening, sir.
What's it look we have?
We have a female. She's partially submerged under the water.
And with Marisha missing, coupled with the description from the student photographer, you start to get the feeling that this might be Marisha.
Okay, can you show me where she is?
Yes, ma'am, this way.
No, thank you.
At that time, authorities notified the family that there was an object in the water fountain, but authorities couldn't say if it was Marisha's body or not.
Knowing they have a potential murder on their hands, local police enlist the help of the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division.
Hey, Investigator Green and SLED.
Henderson, how you doing?
How you doing, sir? What do y'all have out here?
The chief wanted to get SLED involved, and SLED is our state investigative agency. They handle major crime scenes and major cases and things of that nature.
How long has it been here, do you think?
Together, state and local investigators cordon off a perimeter.
If you guys want to follow me, she's down here.
Over the next few hours, investigators process the body. Soon, their suspicions are confirmed.
8:45 or so p.m., it was positively determined that that was indeed the body of Marisha Jeter.
With the identification of the body confirmed, detectives know the task of informing Marisha's family won't be easy, especially considering the emerging details surrounding the condition of her body.
At the river, it really wasn't a lot of evidence, but the body was placed in the water with the bottom garments off.
The body's only partially clothed. There are a pair of jeans on the embankment nearby.
She has no pants on, she's face down, and she has several stab wounds in her neck.
From the first appearance, it looks like it was a possibility that she could have been sexually assaulted.
As Marisha's body is delivered to the coroner's office, investigators comb the area for evidence.
Unfortunately, there's no sign of a murder weapon anywhere, but they do find a footprint of a Nike sneaker.
The thing that stuck out the most to me were the footwear impressions that were beside the embankment where the body was placed into the water, and an Air Force One footwear impression.
As CSIs make a plaster cast of the footprint, Detective Henderson and his partner head to the Jeter home to deliver the tragic news.
Mr. and Miss Jeter, I regret to inform you, we found what we believe is your daughter's body this evening.
No. No!
Marisha's parents were very much in pain, as anyone would be.
My baby girl. She was very close to her family, who really took her passing very, very hard. When your little girl doesn't come home, there's nothing that can make that okay. And to know that she died in such a gruesome and violent way, I think made it that much worse, especially for her family.
Shortly after Marisha's family receives word of her death, the coroner's office completes a full autopsy of her body.
First off, the examination concluded that Marisha had not been sexually assaulted, and secondly, she wasn't pregnant.
The fact that Marisha wasn't pregnant, nor had she been sexually assaulted, seemed to rule out two possibilities. One, this was not a serial rapist or a sexual predator. And two, both Pernell Thompson and his wife Yolanda seemed to be innocent. When you remove the motive of pregnancy from the equation, you start having a hard time seeing how or why they would want to kill her.
However, the severity of Marisha's injuries do suggest the attack on her was personal.
Marisha had been stabbed some 33 times.
I would say that that was a personal killing, that the perpetrator definitely wanted the victim to be dead and wanted the victim to feel the pain.
It would seem as if the person was able to get really close to her. It almost seems like it would be a crime of passion to some degree.
It's very intimate when you're stabbing the person, you're there with them, and you're actually hearing them, probably pleading for their life.
But if this is true, who would want to harm a beloved young woman like Marisha Jeter? And why? It's a question Detective Henderson and his counterparts are desperately trying to answer.
We keep searching from there.
On January 6th, one day after discovering Marisha's body, another piece of the puzzle falls into place for investigators. Police are about to get a return on an early hunch that Marisha's distinctive pink car might help them turn up answers.
Chief made that decision that we were gonna put the information out to the media about the car.
Well, it looks like they found the car a couple counties over. It's been torched.
Investigators get word that South Carolina Highway Patrol in an adjacent county had found a car burning on the side of the road the night before.
The car was burning. It was burned so bad that, they couldn't identify it, so they just picked the car up.
But when State Highway Patrol investigators conducted a more thorough search of the vehicle, they were able to determine who the vehicle was registered to.
The car was registered to Marisha Jeter.
This special car that her father had painted pink for her, because it was her favorite color, was set afire in a very, very hot blaze over in the next county.
Well, typically when someone finds a vehicle that's been burnt, the possibility that there's some foul play begins to loom as a question. Sometimes it is thought that this is a way to hide the evidence of something terrible happening.
For Detective Henderson, the fire-gouged vehicle brings a prior suspect back into focus, Pernell Thompson.
He said that he got burned at his grandmother's house.
On January 5th, 2008, the search for missing South Carolina teen Marisha Jeter ends in heartache when police find her stabbed to death on the muddy banks of the Broad River.
It was a real tragedy because this was a young girl who had so much going for her. She was a star student, junior class president, she was a cheerleader.
Obviously, everyone was devastated by Marisha's death, and no one more so than her dad, Manny Jeter.
No! It's my baby girl.
While the Jeter family is trying to cope with the loss of their daughter, police are scrambling to determine who is responsible for this horrific crime. Then on January 6, 2008, just one day after the discovery of Marisha's body, police in an adjoining county find her prized possession, a pink sports car burned by the side of the road.
I suppose that the main reason that the car had been burned is to destroy evidence or to delay the identification of someone or something like that.
For lead detective Charles Henderson, the discovery of the torched vehicle is a revelation.
When police found Marisha's charred car, they thought, wait a minute, her ex-lover, Pernell Thompson, had burns on his hands and face when they first interviewed him.
Pernell said that it was from a cooking incident that he had at his grandmother's. We subpoenaed his hospital records, and he did. He actually went to the hospital and was checked for his burns.
That part of the story checks out, because the hospital turned over the records. But the records didn't say anything about how he got the burns.
Without more evidence, Henderson's hunch is just that, and there can be no charges filed against Pernell.
Though he can file no formal charges, Detective Henderson believes Pernell Thompson is hiding something. So he and his fellow investigators do a little digging into Pernell's relationship with Marisha Jeter.
They say, hey, we know they're having an affair. Pernell admitted as much. Let's go to Marisha's school, talk to her friends, and see how much they know about this relationship.
They talked to this young man, Terrence Davis, 17 years old or so, who was a good friend and classmate of Marisha's.
Thank you for coming in. Yeah, no problem.
According to Terrence Davis, Marisha and Pernell's relationship started before Pernell and Yolanda were married.
Yolanda always knew that Pernell and Marisha had a relationship. She just suspected when they got married that he would stop the relationship with Marisha.
And according to Terrence Davis, that's exactly what happened, at least at first.
And then he got married, and so it simmered down, and then eventually it started to pick back up again.
He would come home from college, and of course, he had a wife and a child, but somehow he and Marisha reached out to one another again. They couldn't stay away from one another.
Pernell and Yolanda seemed happily married. Then one night out of the blue, Pernell called Marisha and they started talking, then sleeping together shortly thereafter.
The way Terrence describes this relationship sounds very predatory. You've got this young, impressionable girl who carries a torch for this older ex-football star, and Pernell takes all that and uses it to his advantage.
Terrence states that when Yolanda found out that Pernell had rekindled his romance with Marisha, she was none too pleased.
I don't know what your plan is. I don't know what your issue is, but I want you to stay away from my man.
Yolanda felt as though it was starting our marriage, was starting this new family. You need to cut Marisha totally out of your life. And when he did not, that's when she started threatening Marisha, trying to take things into her own hand to tell Marisha to stay away from her husband.
When Yolanda finds out that he's maintained communication with Marisha, she's upset. They're a newly married couple, and she may feel somewhat threatened by him continuing to engage in this communication with someone else.
He was married. Her parents didn't approve, but they still began to see one another. And they kept their relationship secret, but not secret enough.
And Terrence suggested that Marisha might not have wanted to lose Pernell, so she told him she was pregnant, maybe hoping this would keep him in the picture.
The interview with Terrence Davis has shed additional light on Pernell and Marisha's affair. It's also cast a cloud of suspicion over Pernell's wife, Yolanda.
Did Yolanda act on these threats and somehow get her husband involved? Could she have acted alone to carry out these crimes?
To answer these questions, Detective Henderson will need to talk to Pernell Thompson again, and he won't have to look very far.
Pernell actually called Detective Henderson at this point.
Pernell told me that he had heard that some of Marisha's family was wanting to harm him, wanted to talk to me. And I say, well, that's good. I need to talk to you anyway. So meet me at the police department.
That evening, Pernell and Yolanda Thompson make the 2-hour drive from their home in North Carolina to the police station in Union. But this time, Detective Henderson and his fellow investigators are armed with more information.
Myself and the SLED agent, we didn't tell him initially that we had found the body. We're still asking the same questions that we asked in the first interview.
Listen, we subpoenaed your phone records, so let me ask you again. Did you speak with Marisha the day she disappeared?
We text, that was about it, yeah.
Pernell's story remains consistent with his initial statement. He says he spoke with Marisha a few days prior, but he doesn't know where she went. What he doesn't know is that they have found her body down by the river and that they have identified it.
We subpoenaed Marisha's phone records. Marisha's last contact was with Pernell.
Phone records indicated that Pernell and Marisha had indeed been in contact by phone on the night that she went missing.
I spoke with her, but I mean, if you're suggesting that I had anything to do with her going missing, then, you're wasting your time. Now family threatening me, trying to come after me and stuff, and I didn't have anything to do with it.
That's when detectives notice something that may prove Purnell isn't telling the truth.
One of the main arrows in their quiver was that shoe print they found on the riverbank. That print was made from a Nike Air Force One shoe.
Care if we look at your shoe?
Well, lo and behold, if Purnell wasn't wearing a pair of Nike Air Force Ones when he sat down with detectives.
Will Purnell's shoes be the key to understanding what happened to Marisha Jeter? As detectives work to answer that question, the alarming truth will reveal itself, and in the process, illuminate who killed Marisha and why.
It was like, wow, this is crazy.
Just over 24 hours after 16-year-old Marisha Jeter's body is discovered on the banks of the Broad River near Union, South Carolina, police have brought her 20-year-old lover, Purnell Thompson, and his wife, Yolanda, in for questioning.
Purnell was upfront about his affair with Marisha. They had alibis, they didn't seem involved, but the burned car that they found of Marisha's and the burns on Purnell just was suspicious to police.
But it's the shoes Purnell is wearing during his interview that truly piques police interest.
When they found the imprint of some shoes down by the riverbank that matched the shoes that Purnell had on, it seemed even more coincidental that these two things are adding up.
Care if we look at your shoe?
No, I'd rather not.
When Purnell gets defensive and asks why, detectives reveal their trump card.
Hey, we found her car. Somebody torched it.
Really?
Look, we found the body. It has been properly ID'd as Marisha.
Yeah, we got a shoe print right beside it.
It was like once he heard they had Marisha, he just couldn't take it.
Purnell looked at me and said, I'm going to jail for the rest of my life, right? Our response was, it's your time to help yourself right now, Purnell. If you've done something that's bad, now's the time to talk about it.
Look, I'm gonna be honest with you. I had a meetup with me.
As the investigators continued to press him more and more, Purnell actually confesses to the murder of Marisha Jeter.
Once they told him that that was the body, he went ahead and confessed.
Now that they have a confession, investigators must get to the bottom of what exactly took place on the night of Marisha's murder. Purnell willingly obliges.
On the night of January 3rd, he had asked Marisha to meet him at a nearby YMCA so that he could have his jacket back.
Marisha pulls up and he's already outside of the car. His wife, Yolanda, is still in the car.
Hey, here's your jacket.
When she got in the car to hand me my jacket, I started stabbing her.
He cut her in the throat, and Yolanda stood by and watched.
It was just a brutal ambush, and this was a man that Marisha had trusted and even loved.
After, cutting her in the neck, he also choked her.
Pops.
Purnell ultimately dragged her body to the trunk of the car.
I need you to follow me on her car.
He takes her down to the river and he removes her clothes to make it appear as if she was raped or she was sexually assaulted by someone before he places her into the river.
They left the car on the roadside when they were in the process of getting the gas and getting the lighter and things of that nature. Afterwards, after they gathered the gas, they got the lighter, they went back into Chester County where they parked the car and set the car on fire, which led to Purnell getting burned by the flashback from the gas that they poured in the car.
Purnell says that once the car and Marisha had been disposed of, he and Yolanda checked into a roadside motel.
This is where Purnell and Yolanda went after the body had been disposed of and the car had been set afire. They went to Stardust Motel, checked in, and cleaned up.
They got changed, they left, and they went back to Purnell's mother's, which is in Jonesville.
Though his story suggests his wife Yolanda was a willing accomplice, Purnell wants to make one thing crystal clear.
He wants to take full responsibility for the murder.
I don't want Yolanda in any of my statements. I don't want her to have anything to do with it, period.
He said, it's all on me. I want to take responsibility for it.
You know, I just want for us to be a happy family. That's why I done it.
All right, stand up. All right, come on.
A few minutes later, Yolanda tells detectives her version of how the crime went down. Unlike Purnell, Yolanda is more than willing to throw her spouse under the bus.
He actually admitted culpability in an attempt to try and protect his wife, which is somewhat ironic. She was doing the exact opposite of minimizing her involvement and maximizing Purnell's involvement.
But near the conclusion of her interview, Yolanda makes a shocking statement that not only implicates her in Marisha's murder, but suggests she was the one who came up with the idea in the first place.
She indicated that she gave Purnell the motivation to do this. She was very much an accomplice in not only this murder, but also her husband's actions.
I told him, prove that you love me, do this, kill her.
His motive to get her there and to kill her ended up being that he wanted to prove his love for his wife. His wife asked him to do this to prove that he loved her.
She told him that's what she wanted, that that's the only way that she would know that he truly loved her, as opposed to Marisha.
So this was kind of the ultimate test for Yolanda to say, either do this or I'm not going to be with you anymore. You need to prove your love to me by killing Marisha.
Yolanda admitted that she may have applied the motivation, but when it came down to committing the act, she insisted that it was all Purnell.
I didn't think he was going to go that far. I thought he was going to say he shouldn't do it. When we got down there, he said, we got to go through it. I can't turn back just because she didn't know what's going on.
But regardless of how Yolanda or Purnell attempt to characterize her involvement in Marisha's murder, detectives are now convinced Yolanda was the crime's true mastermind.
I don't see any way that this could have been prevented. When you have an evil individual like Yolanda that orchestrates something like this.
They both plotted and agreed that they were going to kill her. So it's something that they both agreed to do.
With Yolanda's statement in tow, detectives ask Purnell to take them to the YMCA parking lot where the attack on Marisha took place.
They found blood in the parking lot. Purnell said that he threw the knife and some of her personal belongings in the tall grass that was beside the parking lot behind the YMCA, and they recovered that. That's where they actually recovered the murder weapon from.
With 2 confessions, the murder weapon, and blood evidence now in their possession, investigators charge Purnell and Yolanda Thompson with murder, kidnapping, and criminal conspiracy.
Obviously, Marisha's loved ones were very relieved there was an arrest, but there was this deep sadness about what happened and why.
But it isn't only friends and family who find the loss of Marisha too much to bear.
It really sunk in for Purnell. About a month after the murder, when he was in jail, the sheriff's office said that he had attempted suicide. He'd attempted to hang himself in his jail cell.
When Purnell tried to hang himself, he left a note that said, "Every time I look at my hands, I see that girl's face."
After that, Purnell and Yolanda cut a deal with the DA.
They didn't want to go through trial. Both of them ended up taking plea deals to avoid the death penalty.
In September of 2009, Purnell Thompson is formally convicted of murder, kidnapping, armed robbery, possession of a knife during the commission of a violent crime, and criminal conspiracy. During sentencing, Marisha's grief-stricken father, Manning Jeter, has some choice words for his daughter's killer.
Marisha's father stood up and said, "One day, I'll get to see my baby. You'll never get that chance. You're going straight to hell, and there's nothing anyone can do to help you."
Purnell is sentenced to life in prison. 2 months later, Yolanda receives the exact same punishment.
I found it satisfying that even though Yolanda had tried to minimize her role and basically throw Purnell under the bus, she ended up receiving the same penalty as Purnell.
It's hard to say if justice was served, even though they'll never have each other and their daughter again. They can still wake up to see a new day. Marisha, she can't do that.
The world has lost this beautiful young woman who had her whole life ahead of her, whose parents loved her, and she was destined for success, and all that was taken away.
I remember talking to her father, and there's a beautiful picture, and there are clouds in the sky. And he pointed at one of the clouds and he said, it's an angel, and that he genuinely believed it was in the shape of an angel, and that was her, that she was looking down at all of us. That was his baby, that was his angel.